Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Mary Lynn. Can you hear us, Tom and Molly?
I can hear you and I can see all of you around the world. Maybe I've seen some of you in conferences wherever you've been, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Minneapolis. It's a pleasure to see you all here today in whatever time zone you are in. I have been a follower of Opportunity International now for more than a quarter of a century, and I so believe in the model, the hands up model versus the hands out model. And it's because of this that I've been a supporter. Over the years, I've been in education as well. So when Opportunity International joined the EduFinance program, the regular program, it made so much sense to me. To get school children in their seats is a really important piece of the future of these countries and our country as well. But there was nothing that gave me more hope than when the quality education was combined with the EduFinance program. And this just made all the difference. Not only are we going to get more children into more seats, but we're going to get more children into more seats and better schools. That's what we're all about. For about the past 8 years, I've been highly involved also in the creation of a high school in Ghana. And it's because of this that I was aware of the grade schools and the middle schools in the nearby area and their dire need for an improvement in the education system there. This last January, which now seems like years ago, doesn't it? I was able to combine my trip to Ghana with an insight trip for the Opportunity International cause. Not only was I able to see what Andrew is doing there in terms of educating the proprietors who are the owners of the school, but also with the education quality program, see what was happening in the schools. And it is amazing. Andrew was well off the starting blocks and into the race when all of a sudden the world shut down. And it's because of this that I, like you, am pretty excited about being able to see what's going on in the rest of the world with this program now that everyone stopped. I'm so pleased that the board of directors members that have been able to join us are here, as well as the ambassador council and you governors that could take time out of these days to put some time to figuring out what we're doing with this mission. Today, we'll have on our call Atul Tandon, who is the CEO of the organization, as well as Andrew McCusker, who is in charge of all of this edu-finance around the world, including the quality education program. And the added joy is being able to have Robinah Zawedde from Uganda on the ground talking about how this looks in the country. So without further ado, let me also, one more housekeeping thing. We'll probably give you about 25 minutes information and then move into a question answer session. We feel that you have questions that for sure these people can answer or at least speak to. What you will do is at the bottom of your screen, find a chat button, and you can either type in there your question, or you can say, I have a question, and someone will call on you in the queue when it's time, and you can present your question yourself. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Atul, can you come to the screen and tell us what you are this mission? You have, of course, the main job of keeping your people safe, and then the secondary job of getting this mission continue.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. And I assume everybody can hear me. And Katie, who's Morgan, who's helping us get the webinar. So thanks so much, Katie, our staff behind the scenes. Well, I have to say greetings to everybody. There are so many of you who I've met over the years and I've got to know. If we said hello, I think our hour would be over. But thank you so much. And I have to say that so many of you, I'm thankful that all of you made time and excited that we could have this time together. And thanks for the technology, actually, that we can do this virtually. You'll have to tell us how this went, because this might be the new way that we engage with all of you in the weeks and months ahead virtually. So Marilyn, thanks for this opportunity. I think I'll just take a few moments because we'd love to hear from Andrew and Robinah, the people at the coalface, like I want to talk about. They're right in the mines, working very hard. But as we've been looking at our work at Opportunity, we entered this year with about 12.3 million clients in 28 countries, right? And 13,994, close to 14,000 schools that our network had funded, and those schools had 3.8 million children. And I'll give you a network-wide view of the impact of COVID-19 first, and then we'll get into the specifics on education. Is of those 12.3 million clients, about 7.1 million are loan clients, right? So of our loan clients, about 7.1 million across the network. Our best estimate today is that 5.5 million of them, somewhere between 5.5 and the numbers going up, not going down, they have lost their livelihoods, period. They are no longer earning a living, right? Remember, these are daily rate people, run small, tiny businesses. They make something or buy something, go and sell it in the marketplace and earn a living, right? Some of them run very small businesses employing 3, 4, 5, 10 people. The result of the movement restrictions across the board has been that marketplaces are closed, movements are restricted, in some cases more severely than others. So that's sort of one dramatic impact. I was on the phone with Linda the baker, who some of you have met, who runs a bakery in Accra. had started selling one loaf under a tree, and now she's got, a bakery that produces thousands of loaves. And she was employing 47 workers to produce and sell her bakery. She's now down to 17, right, workers. And those also she had to go and fetch from the villages because they had got scared and left. And she was able to reassure them and get them back. So very dramatic. People are coming to her bakery. She can't sell anymore in bulk to buy the bread. And she said so many people, Atul, are coming who can't afford it. They want her to give them a loaf. So that's the reality of life in a thriving city in a developing country that many of us have visited and have got to know and love and appreciate. I'll turn to the schools. Every one of the schools is closed. All the children who are in those schools are either at home or on the street. And I think the words sound hard and dramatic, but they actually are true. Is that in many of the schools, the vast majority were providing school meals to the kids, knowing that when they went home at night, they probably won't have food. Remember, these are children drawn from families anywhere from $1 a day to $3.50, $4 a day, which is our range of income. Not only are they not in school, getting no schooling, but that meal is gone too. So that's been the impact, and then the uncertainty of when this will lift and what will the world look like. When the hammer falls, it falls the hardest and the harshest on the people at the bottom of the pyramid. No exception to COVID-19, no exception at all. Infection rates are still low, but the movement restrictions have created a dramatic impact at the bottom. And that's what we're dealing with. Marilyn, I'm going to turn back to you because, of course, we have not been still in all this. We are called to respond. Our work carries on of helping them build thriving lives, but right now we have had to add an emergency layer of services. So I know Andrew will talk more about that. So with that, back to you, Marilyn. But thank you for this opportunity again. It's humbled and honored that you would join and take time to listen to what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. And Andrew, yes, you have a lion's share of all of this for sure. I hope I can see your face on the big screen here. But tell us, while we're waiting to see you, what the actual impact of COVID-19 is on the schools where our EduFinance program is put into place.
Yeah, thanks, Marilyn, and hi, everyone, and thanks very much for joining. I think I've met most of you, but for those who haven't, my name's Andrew McCusker, and I head the Education Finance Program here at Opportunity International. As Atul pointed out, COVID-19 has had massive impacts across a bunch of sectors in the end markets that we work in. But probably the most devastating, certainly from our perspective, is the widespread school closures. Across the globe right now, there's around 91% of schools that are shut. So all of the great work that we've been doing at OI, governments have been doing, other NGOs have been doing over the last 2 decades to get kids into school, and the progress that we've made for the last at least few weeks in most markets that we work in, that's been unwound. Now, we hope that a bunch of the school closures and travel restrictions that are causing this are temporary, and then we can come out strong on the other side. But in the meantime, this is having some pretty significant events or impacts on a bunch of people across the education value chain. So obviously on the learners, being out of school makes learning difficult, in that it's probably more challenging in the markets that we work in than it is here in the UK or where you guys are in North America. As you guys are aware, we have great internet connection here. We all have great devices. We can see each other, talk to each other. In most markets that we work in, that's not the case. It's really challenging for the schools to be communicating with parents and to students while school's not operating. Secondly, on the teachers, the schools that we work with on average employ about 14 teachers each. Right now, while schools are not operating, it's going to be really challenging for them to generate any revenue. While it's challenging for them to generate revenue, about 50 to 60% of their operating costs is typically spent on teacher salaries. The biggest risk through all of this, or one of the big risks through all of this, is that school leaders really struggle to retain their teacher workforce. And it's something that we're working to try to stop as much as we can right now. Thirdly, on school leaders, the entrepreneurs, I think Mary Lynn mentioned that we went to visit a few of these school leaders in Ghana earlier this year in January, just before the COVID-19 restrictions were placed on us. But all of these school leaders, there are around 3,944 of them that are currently in our program. So 13,944 that are currently in our program are not offering any services to pupils right now, and therefore are struggling to generate any revenue. And the fourth stakeholder that's impacted through all of this is the financial institutions that we work with, the education lenders, who, while schools are shut, are going to have a really hard time collecting loan repayments from their school clients and school fee loan clients.
It is such a harsh world out there, huh? Well, so how are you continuing now that the schools are all shut down? What changes have you had to make?
Yeah, there's a couple of different program areas which are impacted. So the work that we're doing in education quality right now we've been forced to turn digital. There's effectively, we used to, as some of you will be aware, we used to deliver technical assistance training for capacity building for the school leaders and the teachers in what we called cluster groups, where we'd bring the schools together to meet once per month to share experience and best practices with each other. Now that freedom of movement has been restricted in every market that we work in, we've been forced to move into digital channels. We've been really surprised at the engagement in our end markets by using what we would consider basic social media channels to not only deliver content to the school leaders and the teachers, but also create communities of our school leaders and teachers where they're solving each other's problems. We'd historically used an app called WhatsApp with our cluster leaders, but over the last couple of weeks, we've launched what are called Facebook Live pages. And these Facebook Live pages are for groups in a country where they can sign up, receive digital content from us. So this content is in two areas: one, helping school leaders to manage their business through this downturn, and secondly, helping teachers to deliver lessons virtually to parents and ultimately to pupils. What we've been really surprised in is, one, the engagement that we've had from schools in these platforms in really low resource settings. So in Uganda, we have about 260 of our schools that are now using this platform to not only absorb content, but also as a community forum where they're posting questions, and other schools are coming on here and offering advice and suggestions based on what they've seen in the market, which is really cool. It's effectively doing our job for us. On the financing side, it's been really challenging. The financial institutions are impacted not just in their education lending business, but across a bunch of different sectors from this. I mentioned earlier that it's challenging for the financial institutions to get loan repayments from schools while they're closed. So what we're doing right now is working with the financial institutions to help them to restructure loans to schools, to offer the schools repayment holidays right now while the schools are closed. That will help the schools to reduce their cash flow burden right now and allow them to focus on other operating expenses which are not so flexible, things like paying teachers and paying rent and things like that. The goal of all of this is to have these schools in place and ready to reopen as soon as the government lifts the travel restrictions in their markets.
It's a big job and so multifaceted. I can't even imagine which hat you know to put on every morning when you get up. Ina, we're happy to have you on the call, and you're in the thick of things. I just learned yesterday that you're the mother of 6 children, all in the house with you, and you also have this job you do. Tell us how the COVID-19 is being received by the community. What's the community doing in relation to this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Marilyn. Happy to be here to share what exactly is on ground. I am in Uganda and I'm based in Kampala. So, right, you have said it very right. Talking about how the community is responding towards the COVID-19. I like to begin with myself, like you have mentioned. I have 4 biological children and 2 spiritual children in the house. And these range from 13 years to 4 years. So you can imagine the different areas. So just talking about how we are responding, in Uganda, currently the country has been under lockdown for about 14 days. And yesterday when the 14 days ended, the Ministry of Health together with the president gave new directives, and we were given another 21 days to make sure people stay at home and keep safe. But this is becoming a little bit challenging on the side of us as families, as churches, because churches are closed down. Schools are closed down, over 73,000 schools being, closed at such a moment. And then also families, thinking about people that were used to, little children getting food from school, and also people that used to go working, on a daily basis, getting $1 and be able to feed their families. It's a very challenging thing. So many of the people in my community are going hungry. They are really struggling, even when the government is coming in to support with a little bit of maize flour and beans. 5 kilos cannot take them longer. So it's a little bit challenging on our side as families, but we are learning to adjust because we know all these precautions have been made to make sure we stay safe and stay away from the virus.
Yeah. It's a hard job for everyone, isn't it? And certainly for those quarantined in a small house on top of each other with no food. So how are your teams preparing, working with these clients that you have?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really wonderful question. It's usually a wonderful thing to be by the side of someone in a time as this. And one of the things that we are doing as education quality team is to really be there for our school leaders, the teachers, and then eventually be able to support the learners and the parents on ground. So the teams, we have stayed in touch with the schools directly through phone calls, because this has been, part of our day-to-day kind of work. We stay in touch. We kind of become part of the school families. So we become like sounding boards that school leaders can speak to. So first thing that the teams are doing is to be available, as an ear for the school leaders to speak to, because it's such a difficult moment for people that have gotten access through financial institutions. And at a time as this, they're not able to pay back their loans. So it's a little bit of a stressful moment. So they need somebody to talk to. And so the education specialists have stayed on ground, communicating and listening to them, giving them a positive ideas, telling them that things will change and things will get better. And the other thing that we continue to do is we continue to avail them with the right information, because we know a lot has been going around on social media. People have been passing around, information. For example, in Uganda, on some of the WhatsApp groups, you see people saying, if you want to increase your immunity and you keep away from COVID-19, you've got to mix thinner with lemon. Everybody knows that thinner is really dangerous to humanity, but somebody passes on that kind of information. So it turns back to us as educators and as a support team to the schools to avail them with the right information to make sure they know that there's actually no treatment as of now. To make sure everybody stays safe. And I think just like Andrew has already mentioned, we still keep in touch to support the schools in terms of school development planning, and also thinking about calculating, staying in place as leaders, talking about assessing and calculating their cash burn rates. We have provided the Facebook pages for every country, and it's very interesting to know that many of them are really getting engaged. So we also appreciate the fact that schools had already worked on their schemes of work. The teachers were already engaged with the children. Now, the most important thing is supporting them on how exactly the right channels to be able to deliver this very content they had prepared, to be able to reach the teachers wherever they are, and eventually to the parents. And it's a little bit challenging because some of the parents are actually illiterate. Maybe they don't know how to read. So part of what we are doing is to avail the teachers with lesson templates, lesson plan templates that they can use to support the teachers, and then they can be able to pass on the content to the parents. Some of the content that you have seen there, some parents, for example, in Uganda, have not even experienced, homeschooling. It's a whole new thing to them. So they need a lot of support on how to manage these children that are already going through a lot of stress because of hunger. A lot of parents are involved in domestic violence. So the kids are already stressed. So parents need a lot of support to understand that how they can support the learners in that kind of environment. So we already have a toolkit for the school leaders to avail to their parents to be able to continue, supporting and engaging the learners from wherever they are. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's interesting to see some of those pages that were put up that show us the kind of content you're receiving to help do your job, and that then the school proprietors receive as well from you.
Yes.
Andrew, is there anything else that you want to add to this for other areas other than just Uganda? What might be the same or different in this arena?
Robinah's done a really good job of explaining the process that we've been through and the pivots in the education quality program. On the work with financial institutions, it's effectively twofold. It's helping the financial institutions to manage this crisis. So how they can offer schools loan repayment holidays and still manage their liquidity without receiving loan repayments for a period of time. And secondly, looking at other opportunities for them. One product that we've been talking to a number of financial institutions about in the product design phase is a working capital loan facility. So that's effectively a loan that could be made to a school at a time like this to help effectively bridge their financing gap while the schools are closed so that they can pay teachers, pay rent and their other fixed costs like utilities. There's some financial institutions that are interested in doing that, and we think it'll be a great way to stabilize the school's cash flows as well as the financial institutions at the moment.
It sounds like you're being the government over there, kind of the loan programs to the schools and keeping businesses open. It's amazing. And thank you for that intervention that you're doing. You have an outstanding team. There's no doubt about it. I've met some of them, not all of them. Robinah is one of them. But how are they managing during this period? And how are you managing to keep them going?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you guys all got to meet Robinah. She's one of our best. We have about 62 people that work in education finance across Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe and North America. Like all of us, every single one of our staff members right now is working from home and remotely. And while we're kind of used to the technology here, it can be very challenging, not just for our staff, but also for their counterparts in the schools and the financial institutions to get used to this way of working with each other. It's been a challenge, not just on the productivity side for the financial institutions, our staff, but also having a bunch of other competing demands in personal life, like Robinah, now with her 6 children in her house with her all the time. It comes with a whole bunch of challenges, as it does for me in London, and I'm sure all of you guys in the Americas as well. The great thing I think about our staff and our program is that working in education in the markets that we do is really uncertain. The same goes for the financial institutions. Our staff are used to a lot of things not going the way that we planned, and have developed this kind of resilience, which I think is really cool. It's not easy, but I guess the thing that gives me a lot of comfort right now is that our entire team is focused on effectively 2 things: helping these schools to survive through this period and do the best they can to engage learners through this period. And secondly, helping them come out the other side at least as strong as they entered into COVID-19.
Well, we thank you for being where you are. Your energy is amazing. Your love of the mission is unbounded, and you're God sent, honestly, being there. A tool we all and all of Opportunity International supporters are kind of the back office for this mission. And without that to provide the engine, it wouldn't keep going. How in the world are you going to keep us all connected while this is going on.
Yeah. Marilyn, thank you for that question. And I'm looking at all the names and the faces, and I'm thinking exactly, okay, how am I going to keep all these people connected and engaged? So one, frankly, I'm open to all and any ideas. Because it's a new world, the virtual world, and how do we best engage? I think it's a question that we'll all collectively answer. So it's genuinely, I'm open to ideas on that. I'll give you sort of a short to medium term. Of course, we were, when we saw this coming, as an organization, we responded. I mean, we are very much a field-based organization, ear to the ground. So we responded about a week before the governments did, to start to get our staff back to safer places, make sure that they had, both in the field and now here, protective equipment, to switching from public to private transportation and things like that in different places where necessary to come back to headquarters, go back to homes. So we've done that. At the same time, just like you're hearing with Andrew on the education side, as well as on our banking side with 78 partners and close to about, I think my best estimate is somewhere between 24 to 26,000 staff members. The good part there is that because we are critical business services, all our worldwide, our financial services partners, implementing partners are open and functioning. Branches are open. Right now, they've come down in number because of movement restrictions, but they're still open. So as you would expect with your banks here, and imagine a world where banks shut down, closed, the chaos that would ensue, right? Our job is to continue to provide those services, which I am thrilled, excited, very proud to say that we are doing. And I want to thank everybody here. Many of you have funded our core programs for decades, right? If you asked yourself to what end and what good use my money was the investments were put to, now is the time to frankly look in the mirror and pat yourselves on the back. It is working. All of our, across the network. The same thing for education. Robinah's got 6 children now. If she's anything like my mother, I think she's got those guys strictly disciplined on, here's homework time, and by golly, you're not gonna get that. I think she gives them a cup of cold water, but beyond that, till you get that done, you're not gonna see your next meal. But at the same time, to continue the work. So on the staff side, we are working with our staff to cope and respond. I would say, and you are all our long supporters, and I'll be open, is that it's a very stressful time. I speak for everybody here. All the staff who are here is a stressful time. It's a difficult time to deal with personal and then our community work. So pray for us. We draw the fact that you showed up, all of you, on this. I can only say it with some emotion. It means a lot to us. The words I was writing down was community, your compassion, your courage that you give us just in this small interaction. Well, it's virtual, yes, but for us, this is real. So please do stay in touch. Answer our phone calls, and do respond to our requests, because it means we're not here simply to communicate with you and tell you. This means a lot to us personally. And the further away we are from the centers here in America, the more we need this kind of communication and backbone support. So that's what my one answer would be, Mary Lynn. Is we are going to tackle this together, all of us, with our mutual support, our mutual showing up, being the community which God has created us to be and has called us to be. I think on the next few weeks, we'll communicate both from email, webinars. You will see, our team has put together a series of similar community engagements that will be virtual. Probably if Laura and Katie are on the call here, every about 2 weeks or so. We don't want to, bother you too much. That's on the virtual level. We are now looking at, instructions on, okay, when do we really go back to being able to have community time personally, face-to-face? We do have dates set up, and I think one of you asked the question about the summit, the 18th, 19th in Chicago. To the question as to where, we can't answer because nobody's answering our phone calls. So, but we are very sure that we will find a good place, and we want to make sure that if the time is right and we're doing it, that it's safe to do. Right, so we need to find a place where it'll be safe for all of us to feel safe in going there and being there. My short answer, we do principally 3 things around the world: microbanking, education, finance, education, and agriculture. And all the 3 will be core parts of the summit. The way that we've traditionally designed these is that there are general sessions and then more specialist sessions in those 3 areas. So that sort of format and pattern is what I'd expect to continue. But that would be in the fall. Between now and then, we'll continue with the virtual engagement. So Marilyn, I hope that answers the question. But my request on that front would be, when you get a webinar invite, please do join us. And when one of my colleagues calls you or texts you, please answer. Because that is of great, for us, it means a lot. It means a lot. It's this work is hard work and lonely work. So you provide us tremendous, I would use the word emotional support that you're with us. It means a lot. So thank you.
It means the world to us that you're doing, and that you have created a team which is capable of doing this work, and that you are using your God-given talents to do this work. So Atul, we couldn't be more blessed and pleased. And I think there's something about a COVID fund or something you're trying to organize us around. If you could tell us a little about that, or Andrew, or both of you.
Sure. Let me, we are for our community here, we launched about 2 weeks back a rapid response fund to respond to COVID-19, specifically for the needs that have arisen because of the impact of the virus, whether infection or largely in our case, the economic impact, which were completely unbudgeted. And our hope and prayer is our one time. And for that fund, as Andrew spoke briefly about, and I'm going to turn back to him because as you heard him, his fundamental premise on our work here is, okay, our work needs to continue building thriving lives, educating children. Right now, these families need an emergency layer of services. So how do we provide that emergency layer? And Andrew uses the word resilience. How do we provide them the resilience they need to survive right now and then be able to bounce back quickly? Andrew, do you want to talk briefly about the components of the resilience program that you have? And then I can talk about the rapid response fund.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Marilyn, and thanks, Atul. There's effectively 3 objectives of what we're trying to achieve here. The first one is to limit school closures and help the schools to retain their workforce. So that's things like supporting financial institutions by offering schools repayment holidays, Robinah's team in education quality delivering school leaders management training on how they can preserve cash through this crisis. The second objective is on promoting continued learning. Again, this is in Robinah's team, trying to reach out to the leaders and teachers of these schools to help them to engage with the parents and kids while there's school closures so that we can carry on this momentum. I think the thing that I'm personally most concerned about is that we lose momentum and lose kids from the education sector permanently if these school closures are prolonged. Keeping them engaged is the best thing that we can do to avoid that right now. And the third one is on helping the schools to rebound quickly when they do get the okay to lift school closures. So secondly, so two pieces of work there on how the schools can rebuild their workforce and how they can recruit pupils back into the classroom.
So that, I think, leads into an ability to move into the question answer session, because we've kind of covered the general information and maybe you all have specifics. I'm going to turn this over to Katie Morgan, who is on staff and very technologically acute to handle this part. Katie?
Thank you, Marilyn. Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to have you on the call today. Thank you for joining us to hear about this very important topic. So as a quick reminder, the chat box at the bottom of your screen, if you have any questions, please put them in there. If you would like to ask your question live, you can also simply say, I have a question, and I will go through the list and unmute you so you can ask the group. So we have first question coming in. Also want to share that great fund that Atul was talking about that is going to be helping our clients. Here is the link if you do feel called to do so. So the first question we have for the group is, what digital platforms or technologies or other education/finance tools and procedures that can be carried forward to improve the programs during and after the pandemic?
Yeah, I might pass that question over to Robinah to talk about how schools are interacting digitally through the social media channels that they previously were not. And Robinah, whether you think you'll continue to use these when schools return?
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. And from what I have already shared with our toolkit, some of the delivery channels that we are using are digital, like we're using the Facebook Lite for school leaders to, continue to collaborate and to carry on conversations with things that really concern them. We are also using a WhatsApp tool. With WhatsApp, like almost every school leader will have a WhatsApp. So we are using WhatsApp to share almost every content that we have. We post on Facebook. We also, post it on the WhatsApp. And we also recognize that some people might not be able to use these platforms really effectively. So we have videos in place to support them with the right knowledge on how exactly they can be able to use them effectively. Like, for example, WhatsApp, we have a video for the school leaders to show them how to use WhatsApp to be able to, pass on content to the teachers, and then eventually how they can train the parents as well to be able to engage the learners while at home. In our program, we have school leaders in rural areas that might not be able to access digital platforms or WhatsApp and Facebook. So the same content can be passed over through SMS to make sure every school leader is reached. That's partly what we are doing as of now.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you so much. All right, our next question is, if schools are being offered a loan holiday but not loan forgiveness, how will schools be able to pay back that increased debt?
Yeah, great question. I might take that. So what we're seeing from financial institutions is a willingness to offer schools loan repayment holidays over the period that schools are closed. And so what will happen is ultimately the loan duration will be extended so that the school will maintain their loan repayments when schools reopen, but for a longer period of time at the end of the loan. Ultimately, what we want to do with everything in education finance is balance the needs of the financial institutions with those of the schools, teachers, and pupils. Ultimately, we want the financial institutions to be running sustainable portfolios and the schools to be running sustainable businesses that are affordable to the kids in their communities. We're doing that now like we did prior to COVID-19 and as we will do when this is all over.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Andrew. All right, I'm looking through the chat now, going through, seeing what we have here. All right. So we have a question, is there anything that is being done to help with meals that the kids are no longer receiving since they are no longer in school?
Robinah, did you want to touch on what you're seeing happen with the schools and children in Uganda?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's really a difficult thing. A number of kids are really going through a tough time. And I think that's why a number of voices have risen up talking about children that are going hungry because of the lockdown, for example, in Uganda, because a good number of them were receiving a meal from a school. So they knew that every time they attended school, there was a meal. So the government, I think in Uganda, the government is trying to do something to really provide food, but also we are encouraging school leaders to look out for, better ways of really supporting parents at this time to make sure that parents are finding ways of, feeding the children, or even the schools to be able to look at different, ways of getting revenue. For example, this is a time when they can probably look up to their gardens to sell food to the community cheaply and be able to support the learners wherever they are so that they remain well fed.
Thank you. That's very important information to know.
Can you hear me? Let me add to that is that,
Yeah.
So what you heard from Robinah is what's happening in Uganda. And similarly, it would be in different parts of Africa, in India, where you all know that I grew up there, born there. Currently, at two different levels, both in terms of the public support, public benefit coming from the local municipalities, what we would call city governments and county governments, as well as Indian nonprofits that our guys work with, are providing midday meals. So just the largest currently midday meal program specifically for children in India is doing about 5 million meals a day across the country, right? And the largest public support program in addition to that is about 11.5 million meals per day. Now, remember, the size of the country is gigantic and the population. So this, it makes a dent, but the need is high. And I can speak for my experience personal experience of going through some of this. Churches, temples, and definitely in the case of India, the mosques, places of worship, play a very, very big role in providing emergency food, meal assistance. The word in my native language is langar. I'll leave that with you, Langar, for those of you who are so inclined to follow words. I love words, you know that. And it means a community meal. So that's what's happening at the ground level, Mary Lynn, and those of you who asked the question in difficult circumstances, very difficult. And you're hearing that the reality, people are responding differently. Latin America is I think, more, if you will, secure in that regard from what we're hearing on the ground there.
Thank you so much, Atul. All right, we have another question here that says, are teachers in turn passing on curriculum to the parents to attempt home learning via text or WhatsApp, assuming that most parents have a mobile phone? Or how are the students staying engaged?
Robinah?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really a great question and really a challenge on our side. We're always looking out for different ways of making sure we support the teachers. Because like I earlier mentioned, a good number of teachers already had the schemes of work and the lesson plans. Now, the complicated bit is how do they get the content to the parents? And these are different kinds of parents. Some of them are able to read, others might not be able to read. And I talked about our delivery channels, talking about Facebook, WhatsApp, and some parents don't have access to smartphones. So one of the things that we are doing is our education specialists continue to engage the parents through phone calls. So we're also advising the school leaders that the teachers can still do a follow-up after sending an SMS to a parent that doesn't have a smartphone. You can still do a follow-up just to make sure they have understood the kind of content you have, you have sent to them, and also be able to, for example, those that are using WhatsApp, from the feedback we've gotten from the schools, if the learners receive the content from the teacher or the assignment from the teacher, they are able to send back for assessment still on WhatsApp, and the teacher can be able to communicate with the learner either through a phone call or whichever way that makes life really easier for them. So it depends on where they are. So those in rural areas, it's a little bit really complicated because everything has to go through SMS and then following up with a phone call. But the education specialists have been very supportive on these, you know, keeping on ground to make sure that teachers know how exactly to communicate with the different types of parents.
Thank you so much. All right, we have one last question in the chat. Are the financial institutions generally supportive of payment holidays as far as you can tell? Are there significant differences by country or region?
Let me handle that. The short answer is it differs by country and region, and it also differs by type of partner, by institution. For opportunity, my answer across the board would be a yes. In many of our countries, the payment holidays, you know, what Andrew described as the loan moratoriums, which essentially extends out the period of the loan, have been mandated by the government. In countries where they have not, which we of course will adhere to, they typically currently are anywhere from 60 to 90 days, you know, as of last week. So it differs by country. In other countries where it is not, you know, we are actively working with our clients to do exactly the same on the ground level. Because the best we can do for them on the, you know, financial loan side is to make sure that their burden of loan repayments doesn't fall on, and this doesn't negatively impact their credit standing either. So yes, we are doing that. The question then comes up, how do you support the banks, right? The consequential impact on cash flow and so on. So what we are currently in the mix of, and part of our rapid response fund, request and need is all right, you know, what we need to do is to make sure that the banks have sufficient funding in place to be able to extend, you know, these loan holidays. So where they have currently available funds, that's great. Otherwise, you have to then, you know, quickly borrow the local funds, or we provide some of the funds. So that mix of both borrowing cost and provision is how we are managing this. The how long will we manage is a good question. Will it be for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? We don't know right now, but you know, we are both looking at small size measures, but at the same time, I know some of our team is on the phone today or on the webinar, looking at working with everybody from the IFC to Goldman Sachs and other significant firms here in the US to start to release more liquidity to the banks so they can in turn extend these moratoriums. So that's sort of on the one level. The second level that the banks already started up, our project staff actually started doing this even before, that nobody checked, which was the right thing to do, is cash grants specifically for food support, the question you all raised. In one instance, where a community was completely isolated because of a government order, couldn't get out, our staff actually contributed from their salary to purchase the food. We had the permission for our own van truck to run from the government and to deliver it to the community. So that's the second level, and it's all this has happened in the last 10 days. So we are looking at the cash grant assistance as well where it is needed. So those two levels are, so Marilyn, in that sense, the response is both at the individual client level, how do we help them on loan moratoria, and then at the community level, what you heard Andrew and Robinah speak about. All right, how do we make sure both as educators and now as what I would call first responders, our bank staff as well, are we making sure that the community actually has the right information, the right knowledge on how to tackle, the pandemic itself. And then on the third level, as Andrew spoke about, our response is how do we make sure that the institutions who deliver all these services, schools and our banks and financial institution partners, stay afloat and then can bounce back quickly. So it's this twin engine of emergency services today and then make sure that they're ready to bounce back, that we're working on simultaneously. And that's what the Rapid Response Fund basically does. For those of you who felt like, giving for this, which is our current emergency need versus our ongoing needs. So I hope that answers the question on a network-wide basis.
Atul, thank you so much for all that you've been filling us in on, doing in the meantime. All of you, you now know exactly what the organization is doing to keep in touch with the clients, in touch with the families, and supporting the mission in general. And it's a big job. It's hard. These are hard times. But I'll tell you this, just as you could see with Atul speaking to us, when you know that someone cares about you personally, and when you know that not only do they care about you personally, but they have a vision for future, that gives you hope, so much hope. And hope is a great motivator. The way we give this hope is from our love. And what motivates us to do this is our faith. It's really those three that bring us all together to support what we're doing here. And it's the faith that we give the organization that we will be supportive of them that keeps them going. And I don't mean just faith in terms of, yep, we've got your back, but I mean faith that takes us down in the trenches and works with them side by side. And we can do this by digging deeply in these trenches. First, deeply in our prayer life. They need every prayer that we can send their way. God hears our prayers. This is a time that we want to make sure that they are on the top of our list. The second one is dig deeply and tell the story. There are a lot of people in this country and around the world that are really down in the dumps because they've been thinking about themselves, about how hard it is for them during this period. And if we can tell this story, we can lift them up to a thought about the world, and maybe they'll even think about what they might do to make someone's life better, and maybe even join this mission. And the third way, of course, is digging deeply into our own resources. There's some of us who may have been thinking that, boy, when I hear about a real good cause, then I'm going to really dig deep. Or, when it's really the right time, then I'm going to really dig deep. But the fact is, this is the time, this is the cause, and this is the reason why we have to dig deeply into all those three resources to help. So my wish for all of you is that you stay safe, that you keep the faith, that you keep connected, and that you enter in. God bless you all, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mary.